Again, we want to thank everybody for coming. That is going to conclude our portion. We're going to do the door prizes, but at this time, if the Wall of Fame inductees and their guests would like to make it out to the hallway, and then they can begin their proceedings. Okay, now we're going to do our door prizes. Again, thank you very much, Wall of Fame inductees. We'll be able to join you in a minute. At the conclusion of this event, we're going to be playing our senior tribute video. It takes about 20-25 minutes. Okay, everyone ready to take a seat? No one didn't pick anything yet. I don't have anything. Okay.
Maybe even mow the lawn, and any favors he wants, of course, you just have to do. She says, okay. She walks out, gets in the car, he drives home. He goes, honey, what did the doctor say? She looks over and says, he said you're going to die. All right, let's get on with it. First, we're going to, the first individual that we're inducting tonight, I had the opportunity to coach 1 year. I coached at Clarence as an assistant football coach under Glenn Faust in 1979. And the team that was there was an outstanding football team, and Steve Rocky was a member of that, and certainly was an outstanding high school football player. But I do tell you, I'm going to tell you one quick story. Steve's heard this before, but in the Winsville North game, whoever won that game went to Rich Stadium for the very first time. The very first time at Rich Stadium, of course, it's Wilson now, and I always tell the guys going to Rich, and they look at me kind of funny, the kids of today, but I can't get that out of my mind. But so, if we beat Winsville North, we're going to Rich Stadium, first time ever, 1979. So, we're out there, we're beating them pretty good, and they had a couple of twins that were real big linemen, and all of a sudden, I think it was the fourth quarter, here comes the officials, and with them, Steve Rocky. And he walks up to Coach Faust and said, this young man is out of the game. And I just couldn't believe it. I had never seen Steve get mad, hardly much less, to say something. So, afterwards, I walk up to him, I said, Steve, could you tell me what happened? He goes, Coach, there's been some pretty bad calls up there today. And I go, yeah, there were, but what'd you say to him? He goes, I just went up to him and asked him, sir, will I get thrown in the game for when I'm thinking about your officiating? He says, absolutely not. So Steve says, well, then I think you are terrible. How we went. So, without further ado, Mark Blair, who was also on that team, is going to come up and talk about Steve.
I'm not sure Steve's mom and dad know he was thrown out of that game, Mr. Goddard, but they know now. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Athletic Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and I'd like to congratulate all the inductees tonight. To Maureen and her parents, congratulations. I knew a lot about you and your running ability when I came back to Clarence after I graduated from college. And to Mr. Conventor, I sat in his classroom here in Clarence High School, and I was lucky enough to attend some of those swim meets that Fred was the coach of, and I think perhaps a meet I attended versus Winsville North, either my sophomore, junior, or senior year, was probably one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen in athletics at Clarence High School. It kind of made me aware of how exciting swimming can be. And Ron Keener, Ron, I came back to Clarence in 1986 as a volunteer coach with Coach Faust, and happened to be Ron's senior year, and I got an opportunity to help out, and Ron was just an amazing football player, and I enjoyed every minute of watching him play. It's my honor tonight to present Steve Rocky for induction into the Clarence Athletic Hall of Fame, and to Steve's family and friends who come here tonight to celebrate this achievement, I welcome you to Clarence High School. Steve is a member of the Clarence High School class of 1980. His athletic career began at Parker Elementary School. Steve was a lifelong member of the Clarence School District, and his athletic career began under the direction of Hall of Famer Lefty Helms, who was Steve's phys ed teacher at Parker at the time. Steve also attended Clarence Junior High School, and he comes from a Clarence School District family. His mother and father are here tonight, and his father was the longtime transportation director for the town of Clarence, and his mother worked here in the high school for many years, so it was difficult for Steve to get away with anything in school, so he saved his getting away with things for the football field and the basketball court. Steve was a standout two-sport athlete at Clarence High School. He played freshman basketball for fellow Hall of Famer Terry Ransbury. He played JV basketball for Charlie Donner and 2 years of varsity basketball for Howie Johns. At 6'5" tall, Steve was a dominating player at the varsity level. During his senior season, he was named team MVP and was selected first team ECIC Division II All-Star. He totaled 261 points for an average of 13.7 points per game and had 259 rebounds with a per game average of 13.6. Steve's rebounding and shot blocking ability made him one of the most dominating defensive players in the division. Steve still enjoys playing basketball until recently. He played quite often in recreational leagues around Western New York, pulling down rebounds and passing the ball out to Coach Vesper so he could launch up another three. Steve, of course, also was a dominating high school football player for Clarence. He played 3 years of varsity football for the Red Devils. Steve played for Terry Ransbury his sophomore year, and then Glenn Faust his junior and senior year. He was a 3-time Division IV first-team All-Star and a dominating two-way starter. As a junior, Steve was selected first-team All-Western New York as a tight end, and as a senior, Steve was again selected first-team All-Western New York, this time as a defensive end. As a tight end, Steve was a dangerous receiving threat in addition to being an outstanding blocker. In his career, Steve caught 10 touchdown passes, recording 3 his sophomore year, 6 his junior year, and 1 his senior year. During Steve's sophomore and junior seasons, the team went 7 wins and 1 loss, and during his senior year, he did lead the Red Devils to an 8-1 record, and the first Clarence appearance ever at what was then called Rich Stadium. Clarence defeated Alden 14-0 to close out Steve's career with an overall record of 22 wins and 3 losses. Steve then accepted what at the time was his only full scholarship offer to Holy Cross. He made an immediate impact at the collegiate level and was selected ECAC Rookie of the Year while recording 10 sacks on the season and returning an interception for a touchdown versus Dartmouth. During Steve's senior year, Holy Cross at one point was the #1 ranked team in the nation in Class 1AA football. They finished with a record of 9 wins and 2 losses and 1 tie, and Steve was selected a first-team Kodak All-American, first-team All-New England, and a weekly All-Star a number of times. He competed against Heisman Trophy winner Doug Flutie a number of times while playing football at Holy Cross. Steve was then drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals of the NFL and the Oakland Invaders of the USFL. In 1984, he chose to sign with the Montreal Concord of the Canadian Football League as a pass-rushing specialist. Soon after, the Concord changed their name back to the better-known Montreal Alouettes. Steve played 3 years of professional football in Canada. While in Montreal, Steve's teammate was quarterback Turner Gill, who is now the head football coach at the University of Buffalo. During the 1984 season as a rookie, Steve was named first-team All-CFL and was also a back-to-back CFL Star of the Week. He played 2 more years in Canada before ending his career. A few years later, Steve returned to Western New York area, where he would become an assistant coach for the Clarence JV football team. Steve brought a wealth of knowledge and experience to the Clarence football program. He would serve as defensive coordinator for 16 years. During this time, the JV football team enjoyed a win streak of 30 consecutive games and at one point had an overall record of 54 wins, 8 losses, and 1 tie. Steve had an uncanny way of preparing a JV defense for an opponent. Through film study, Steve came up with game plans that the players enjoyed putting into action. His aggressive attacking style of defense led to many dominating defensive performances. Many former players speak of Coach Rocky as someone they respected and someone who put them in a position to be successful on the field. Rock, as many of the players called him, had a great relationship with all the players he coached. During the varsity games, Steve was on the headphones in the press box, helping the varsity coaches in whatever way possible. In 2007, Steve was inducted into the Holy Cross Athletic Hall of Fame for his accomplishments in football. Steve now has a place among former Holy Cross greats such as Bob Cousy and Tom Heinsohn of the Boston Celtics and 2-time Heisman Trophy runner-up Gordy Loutbaum. Steve was well-deserving of this great honor, and it put the finishing touches on a great college football career. Steve now resides in Clarence with his wife Patty. He still serves as scoreboard operator for the girls varsity and JV basketball games, and can be seen sitting in the stands with his father during JV football games in the fall or an occasional visit to the press box when the varsity is playing at home. For all of Steve's accomplishments, he has never been one to seek the spotlight. Rather, he would just go about his business in his own way. It's my privilege to introduce my friend and the newest member of the Clarence High School Athletic Hall of Fame, Mr. Steve Rocky.
to the public speakers, probably everybody that's speaking here tonight, so I wrote everything down. And some of it's already been mentioned, but I'll rehash it in my own version. I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. I've never been to a Wall of Fame ceremony before, but it's really a very nice event. I'd like to thank the Academy for selecting me as a new member of the Clarence Wall of Fame. I'm proud to graduate from Clarence and to now be on the Wall of Fame. It's a great honor. It's also an honor to be enshrined with Fred Competore, Ron Keener, and Maureen Curran. Fred was one of the best life teachers during my time at the high school, as well as a great swimming coach. I remember being in Fred's class and some of the students with too much time on their hands, some of them being friends of mine, would run through the halls and throw coins under the door of Fred's classroom to try to aggravate him. It never worked. Fred built a contraption out of a cardboard box to catch these coins that he saved in a jar on his desk labeled retirement fund. That sense of humor combined with the mastery of the subject matter is what made him such a popular teacher. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Ron over the years. I played with and against him in various basketball and softball leagues. He's always been an easy guy to have as a teammate or an opponent. In the tradition of former Clarence basketball players like Brian Schmidt, Dan DePiro, Mike Nealon, and others, Ron could always find a way to squeeze off a shot from anywhere on the court. I don't have the pleasure of knowing Maureen, but after looking at her accomplishments, it's obvious she is a well-deserving member of the Wall of Fame. When I think of individual awards like this, celebrating career-long achievements, is to be shared with many people that help support, guide, and encourage us along the way. I certainly would not be here tonight if it were not for the support of my family, guidance of many great coaches, and a lot of outstanding teammates. We all won a bunch of games together and had fun doing it. So I'll start by mentioning my wife, Patty, because she asked me to. She tries to sit through the same boring stories over and over again with a smile on her face. She's able to do it most of the time. I'd like to thank my parents for always supporting my athletic endeavors no matter what the level of competition or the location. They have attended everything from Little League baseball games in Clarence to CFL games in Montreal, from the softball league in Akron to 42 out of 45 Holy Cross football games all over the Northeast. And they only missed those 3 games because I was injured. I'm sure this will embarrass them, but please give them a hand for me. As I mentioned earlier, the coaches I've had at all levels of my athletic career have been instrumental in any success I've achieved. As was mentioned, my elementary phys ed teacher was Wall of Famer Lefty Helms. I was not all that interested in playing sports until Lefty convinced me to start attending the Saturday rec program that he ran at Parker. His perfect blend of encouragement and constructive criticism started me down the path to becoming an athlete. Next in line for me was another Wall of Famer, Terry Ransbury. He was my freshman basketball coach and varsity football coach for my sophomore season. Terry inspired equal amounts of fear and respect for me. I soon figured out that he, like Lefty, knew exactly what I needed. After my freshman season, I thought playing football with my friends was going to be all fun and not that serious a pursuit. Coach Ransbury changed that opinion. He told me I was now a tight end, not a center, and I needed to start lifting weights. I didn't take him up on the lifting part, but I played tight end with the JV throughout the preseason. He then told me I'd be going with the varsity to the Batavia scrimmage 2 days before the event. I didn't want to go. None of my buddies were on varsity. I went because he told me to. I guess it must have gone well because halfway through the scrimmage as I walked to the water gun, Coach Ransbury yelled at me, "Hey Rocky, you can kiss your JV friends goodbye." All my heart sank. But again, he knew what he was doing because I became a first-team divisional all-star as a sophomore tight end. And then came Glenn Faust. I'm sure he will be a Clarence Wall of Famer in the near future. Glenn was a great coach and leader because he somehow knew how to get the best out of everybody. Whether you needed a kick in the butt or a little encouragement, you always got what you needed from him. We were 15-2 under Glenn, and we were lucky enough to play in the first sectional games ever held in our stadium. The game Coach Faust could have forced me to miss. As Tom referenced earlier, we landed an easy win in our last game of the regular season. I pointed out a particularly bad call made by one of the officials by describing them all as a bunch of blank blanks. I was ejected, of course, Coach Faust was ripping me after the game, and he asked me, "The ref told me you said they were blank blanks. Is that true?" "Yes," I said. But before he could continue with my tongue lashing, my old buddy Lefty Helms came to my defense saying, "But it was a bad call." My lecture was over. Glenn decided I could play in the playoff team, and he worked me harder than ever that following week. Turns out that I looked good enough on the Rick Stadium game film to earn a full scholarship to Holy Cross. Again, another of my Clarence coaches knew exactly what I needed. All three of these men could have easily coached college football or beyond, but they chose to stay in Clarence and help young men like myself. We were all lucky they made that choice. While football became my number one sport, basketball was the game I enjoyed the most. I also had quality basketball coaches in my time in Clarence. All of them had talents for motivating us to play our best. After messing up a certain play a few times, Coach Ransbury would show us where to be on the floor by taking a piece of chalk and writing "stupid" on the court where we needed to stand. You should try that. Charlie Downer coached our JV team. After a poor performance, he once told me that he could out-rebound me while sitting in a wheelchair. As a varsity player, we were coached by Howie John, who should become a Wall of Famer also. We were never a championship team, but we won a lot more than we lost, and we had a great time doing it. His sense of humor and rapport with the players always kept us looking forward to practice in the middle of winter when it could easily have become dry. It always brings back fond memories when I see Howie around town. And after high school, two of my college coaches became respected NFL assistants, and my CFL position coach has since won 2 CFL titles as a head coach. I doubt there are any people that had such an outstanding array of mentors to help them along the road to athletic success. And lastly, my teammates. The main reason I got involved in sports was to have fun with my friends. We've always had a lot of fun on and off the field on every team I've ever been a part of. I've made lifelong friendships through my participation in sports. And since I've always played team sports, any individual honor I've received is a reflection of the team as well. So every teammate I've ever had owns a piece of this award with me. I'd like to thank some of my former Red Devil teammates for coming tonight. It means a lot to me. So I share this honor with my family, friends, coaches, and teammates. This is for all of us. Thank you.
Steve Rocky, Wall of Fame.
Most of the awards on the wall, Coach Helms did.